Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Wall by Pink Floyd, the greatest concept album of all time, in a lot of people's opinion. It's close, personally, between some like more personal bands that I listen to that aren't as popular as them, and it's close for a lot of people between this and the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, but I definitely prefer this album. I would say it's the greatest concept album of all time, in my opinion. The themes here are just really simple, but the way they're explored is very complex. And it takes 26 songs spanning two sides to get it all across, and there's no filler in this album whatsoever, which is incredible. Like every single, like you don't want to just listen past a couple songs. You want to be focused on the lyrics, focused on the instrumentals all throughout because they convey such deep emotions in them. Uh, yeah, this was like their final big project before their bassist left, and they were never really that good again. They did release uh, one other album that I think is pretty good, but other than that, they could never get to the absolute peak, creative peak of this album, and that would just be an impossible mountain to uh, climb because this album is just great front to back, as I've said. Kicking off the album with "In the Flesh" is sort of the protagonist looking back at events that occurred before he was born, like his father dying in a plane crash. At the what you hear, it's sort of at the end of the track. Towards the beginning of the track, there's sort of this calm instrumental that sort of we'll talk about later. But it's a great start before it gets really loud, way more rocky, and it sort of sets the tone of the album. But yeah, you can hear a plane crash, and then the protagonist, whose name is Pink Floyd, which I'm just gonna call him the protagonist because that'll make it more clear throughout the review who I'm talking about, because the band is also named Pink Floyd. But he's born, and then we get into the second song, "The Thin Ice," which has these great little pianos on the chorus that do make it feel really thin. But uh, it's sort of like his mother saying, like, you have to be careful with like the people you meet and the friends you make in your life, and that sort of makes him probably a little bit more introverted, probably less likely to try and make friends. Uh, Not hating on any introverts by any means, but the way that he carries out his personality is extremely damaging to his mental health. And then another brick in the wall is sort of while he's growing up, and he realizes that his dad's death is sort of like a bit like something that makes him want to block himself away from society, which is the main theme of this album, and that's just a perfect metaphor for everything bad that ever happens to you, even if it's your own fault, as we'll see later, being that brick in the wall that makes you want to just cut everything off. But at the end, we hear a helicopter. The song sort of just builds what we'll later hear on parts 2 and 3. Sorry. But after that, we have "The Happiest Days of Our Lives," which is sort of a quick interlude where he talks about how his teachers sort of hurt him by not really caring for the kids. They were sort of beating them and such. But at the end of the track, we get these loud, sort of polyrhythmic, panoramic drums going all around, and these oohs before this sort of like scream descends into another brick in the wall. It's one of the greatest track transitions of all time. But this one has a sort of dance driving rhythm to it, and yeah, you've most likely heard the song, even if you don't recognize it, you've probably heard it. It is just such an iconic song. There's not actually that much guitar on it until the very end. It's mostly drum and bass driven, as well as vocals. Speaking of vocals, the choral vocals on here from a children's choir are excellent. Uh, yeah, and the guitar solo leading it out is also really great, especially over the dance rhythm. It fits perfectly. Um, Following that is Mother, where he discusses more in detail how his mother was extremely overprotective, and again, sort of leading to that wanting to be away from society that really harms him later on in the album. Uh, Goodbye Blue Sky, the seventh track on here, I don't think does too much to progress the story, but it does have a nice sort of contrast between these nice like sunny guitars, and then these dark synths will come in, and the guitar lines will sort of sour, and it sounds really great. Maybe what it is him sort of just talking about now that he's like growing up, he's gonna miss his family. Although that doesn't directly tie into the themes of this album, I think it still pushes the storyline forward. And then Empty Spaces is just truly sad. It has these really loud sort of what's the word for it? I would say like soaring. Yeah, that's the word for it. Like these soaring guitar lines over everything that are just so sad, and him singing about how like his mother being gone, he doesn't have anything to fill the empty spaces in the wall that he wants to. And that transitions directly into Young Lust when he arrives at like where he lives for the next pretty much the rest of the album, and in the home that he'll live in for the next couple of songs. But here we sort of see him asking like sort of really unhealthily, like the way he treats women, being like, "Oh, I need a woman." I mean that's really all it is, but it's just like unhealthy the way he says it. Like that's not how one should act, and it definitely affects him building the wall. Just the way that he thinks about all of this, where he just like somehow deserves it. And then one of my turns has this. It's basically him like after he does get like a girlfriend, he starts to be like, this hasn't really fixed anything, and we're not getting along very well, and that for some reason he decides to start like throwing things on the ground and basically shouting at her to get out. It's really adult, and not exactly the thing I like to talk about on my channel. But I mean, it has to be discussed to understand the themes of this album. And then once she actually leaves, he's all sad. Like I said, this is really unhealthy. Just the mental state of like, it's not my fault. It's your fault for leaving me. Like, how could you do this to me? When honestly, it was probably the right thing for her to do, to leave. And then that leads into another brick in the wall, part three, where he sort of considers this as like the final brick in the wall, where he like completely shuts himself off from society. Uh, yeah, so now he's in this really unhealthy position where he just doesn't want to make connections to uh, anyone, and he thinks it's the world's fault for his own problems, which he goes over again in Goodbye Cruel World, which is a low key end to the first side. And then Hey You is sort of him trying to reach out without understanding that it's still like his fault. Like, just trying to reach out to people, it's not gonna do much because you're still you're still your own problem, you know. I know I've been talking a lot about the lyrics here and not a ton about the instrumentals, but this is very much a lyrics driven album whose instrumentals just so happen to be great. But on this song, they really stick out as sort of like this constant eighth note repetition all over for the guitar riffs. Yeah, that's about all I have to say on that track. And then, Is There Anybody Out There has these great, is there anybody out there? And then when he says out there, there's all these sort of voices that collect and also shout out there. And this great sort of sad guitar line on here as well. Clearly, he's still trying to reach out, although obviously it's not working. At this point, he's pretty much just completely confined himself to his room, and he's not trying to communicate with anyone, at least in like a healthy way. Uh, Nobody Home is him trying to communicate with someone. I'm not sure who. They don't exactly specify, but obviously they're trying to get away from him, which makes sense. But it only sort of furthers him getting being behind this wall because now he has no one to reach out to, no one he was close to. The same thing goes for Vera. Both of these are very much like ballads, though Vera relies a lot more on sort of like string arrangements, while Nobody Home has um, a lot more like orchestral and a little bit of choral vocals behind it. But yeah, after that is Bring the Boys Back Home, which is militaristic, though different from like the intro, which I'd also sort of consider militaristic in a way. It's a lot more sort of uplifting, like a march, uh, where I feel like he's given up on trying to reach out to other people, and he's trying to find other things that can make him happy, which he's still ignoring the problem, which is he needs to stop blaming the world for his problems and start understanding that most of what's caused him to block off society were his own faults. But after that, on Comfortably Numb, my God, this track is amazing. It's a perfect psychedelic song. It has just everything to sound extremely druggy, where everything is all like woozy and like happy sounding. But it's got some great guitar solos in there as well, and him sort of again lyrically acting like this is gonna somehow fix his problems by taking these drugs. And then the show must go on after the drugs wear out. He's built himself up as a rock star to this point. I feel like I should have mentioned that earlier, but it's not particularly crucial to the story until this point. Uh, but after that, we get In the Flesh, which is the same title as the intro, just without the question mark at the end. And it's almost the exact same song, except about halfway through, towards like the chorus part, where like the guitar and the drums drop out a little bit. We get sort of this lengthened part with all these uh, choral vocals and this sort of gunshot snare throughout, and him now blaming minorities like gays and Jews, basically becoming a fascist. So at this point, he's completely irredeemable as a character, but you still sort of hope that he begins to understand that what he's doing is just completely wrong. And then the ninth track, "Run Like Hell," he it's sort of like this like running march where it starts out with this sort of sliding like sort of like a riff on guitar before it sort of pans out, and then you get this driving 1 2 1 2 beat, even though it's still in 4/4, and him sort of heading this riot as they charge all these people out onto the street. And then Waiting for the Worms is basically him, like the police getting called on the riots, and him sort of saying, "Well, I'm completely separated from society, so you know what's being in jail gonna do for me." Of course, that's just my interpretation. Everything on here is my interpretation, of course. Uh, a lot of people have interpreted it completely differently. Um, but then he stop is this uh, great part where we have all these trumpets and horns and everything build up, where he just says stop, and then we're just left with this tiny piano melody that slowly sours as he says, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to take the responsibility." And then the trial is him just going almost completely insane, and he notices that as well. He says all these things going on in his mind are just symptoms of his insanity, as he's just given up on everything. But inside his head, he finally takes blame for everything he's done, and the mental torment that he's gone through, where he basically gets sentenced by a judge to be revealed before his peers and everything. And then the wall comes down, and then we get Outside the Wall, which is the exact same melody from the beginning, which worries me a little bit. I know I'm getting worried over this fictional character, but it does worry me because that sort of just makes me feel like the cycle is just going to start over again. And this isn't something any one person should go through multiple times. It's just not good. But they sort of say like how maybe things will be better now that he's taken responsibility for the bad things that he's done to make himself feel bad, like it's somehow society's fault for making him feel like that. God, I've said society a lot in this video. But yeah, honestly, greatest concept album of all time. Uh, yeah, uh, Pink Floyd's magnum opus, I'd say, even better than Dark Side of the Moon, though that album definitely has a lot of fans that would say that that one's better than this one. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, because I do want to hear some other takes on the story. Yeah, thanks for watching.